Hello and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to cover the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We broadcast every week at this time, so thanks everyone for tuning in, 2100 Kyiv time. Please do, if you could, like the current show. That will help us spread the word about what's going on here. It'll bring more people to the stream. And also, please do subscribe to Tochnyi for future updates. And we just appreciate people spreading the word about us on other social media platforms. I think we're doing a pretty good job putting stuff out here on YouTube. So if you could point people our direction, we always appreciate it. We do our best to provide you guys accurate coverage of Ukraine. So we have a good show lined up for you today, if I do say so. First, I'll be presenting the news. That'll be followed by our German aid to Ukraine report. That'll be followed by a new article that our contributor Brendan has written. Then Colby will discuss the $8 billion aid package from the U.S. That was recently announced. And then we'll have a little bit of Q&A with the chat. So please do ask any questions in chat if you have any. And then I'll go ahead and jump into the news. Ukraine State Security Service announced the neutralization of a sleeper cell operating in Odessa, allegedly directed by Russian military intelligence. The so-called combat group had been tasked with seizing key administrative state institutions in Odessa during the initial stages of Russia's invasion. However, after the invasion's progress stalled, the Russian Federal Security Service ordered the group to remain dormant. I actually saw another article, I want to say it said it was GRU, so I don't know, it might be. Anyway, the SBU's intelligence efforts revealed that the group was reactivated over the summer. During their operations, the SBU detained the cell's leader, a 49-year-old who had previously lived in Crimea before relocating after 2014, along with his second in command. Authorities discovered a cache of weapons and tactical gear, including firearms with optical sights, ammunition, body armor, and other equipment. The group had recruited around 24 individuals, and the detained individuals are under investigation and will face up to 10 years in prison if convicted. On the evening of September 21st, two 16-year-old school children in Russia set fire to an Mi-8 military helicopter at the Omsk-Zverny airport in Russia. Local reports indicate that the two teens threw an incendiary device into the aircraft before fleeing on bicycles. They were later apprehended, and it's alleged that the teenagers were promised around 2 million rubles for the deed. The helicopter in question was likely an Mi-8 AMTSH model, which is designed to carry missiles. The incident is part of a series of recent arson attacks on Russian military equipment. Earlier in September, two miners set fire to another Mi-8 helicopter in the Noyabrsk airbase in Russia, reportedly for a higher promised payment. Similar acts of sabotage targeting Russian military equipment have occurred, including attacks on MiG-31 fighter jets and other military vehicles at various air bases. Some of these incidents have been attributed to a Russian resistance movement, such as the Freedom of Russia Legion, which has claimed responsibility for damaging equipment, for example, at the Bolshoye Savino airport, as well as other locations. And yeah, there's lots of other groups that sort of take credit for this. And then also sometimes it's just random people like babushkas and 16-year-olds like this. Anyway, next item. Between September 23rd and 26th, Ukrainian cyber specialists from the main Directorate of Intelligence launched successful attacks on more than 800 servers across various regions of Russia, according to intelligence sources. The cyber operations led to the total destruction of documents and data stored in the affected servers, which belong to military, administrative, and financial institutions supporting Russia's activities against Ukraine. The data loss caused significant disruptions, leading to partial or full shutdowns for several service providers and consumers. And the event will likely require substantial resources for data recovery. Couldn't find a ton of specifics, but it was mentioned that Bank of Russia, Tinkoff Bank, Gazbank, and the SBP payment system were affected. These were previous incidents. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly. There weren't like a lot of specifics about this attack aside from that they mentioned 800 servers. Next item. The Ukrainian Defense Forces are using an AI platform called Avengers to automatically detect around 12,000 enemy targets each week. This is developed by the Ministry of Defense's Innovation Center. The system analyzes video from drones and stationary cameras, which allow for faster and more accurate decision-making while reducing human error caused by fatigue. The Avengers platform is integrated with the Veja module in Ukraine's Delta battlefield management system, which I've covered previously. It's sort of their battlefield information system. It's considered pretty sophisticated for like an integrated system. This particular platform is unique globally. This Avengers platform that's part of the Delta system. It has a vast database of video footage on enemy vehicles and has continued to improve as they add more data to it from all the footage they have. It can detect various types of enemy equipment, including hidden tanks and armored vehicles in challenging conditions like forests and muddy roads. And plans are underway to expand the platform's cloud capabilities and to integrate this AI system into drones. This, I think, is about the Delta system specifically. But you can imagine this Avenger system, like it can, like a little box will show up and it'll be like tank or like car or like, person. That's kind of what it does. It's like an automatic identification assistant. So it helps people see immediately, oh, that's a tank there. It's not, it's hidden. So yeah, that's it for operational stuff this week. Next up is aid and economy. The UK announced that they're on track to deliver 16 AS-90 artillery guns to Ukraine. This exceeds their initial pledge of 12 units within 100 days. So far, 10 guns have been delivered, and 6 more are expected in the coming weeks. The contribution is part of a continued package, which so far amounts to about $3 billion total annually until around 2030. The UK has announced also the formation of a new Joint Ministry of Defense and Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, short FCDO, unit to coordinate efforts for Ukraine, led by Foreign Secretary David Lammy and Defense Secretary John Healey. The MOD is also enhancing its cyber resilience through a new pathway, which includes specialized selection and training programs. So yeah, the main thing is this office to coordinate efforts to Ukraine. I think it's like with the Commonwealth partners. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense launched the Nordic Brigade project, aiming to enhance defense collaboration with Northern European countries. The project invites Scandinavian nations to assist in arming Nordic nations, to assist in training and arming Ukrainian battalions. These countries are known for strong support of Ukraine and have been providing military aid. During a recent meeting with the Norwegian Ministry of Defense Secretary, Ukraine extended an official invitation for Norway to join the project. The meeting took place on September 17th through 19th in Norway. And Balanutsa highlighted the strategic advantage for Nordic defense companies, noting that participating in this project would allow them to showcase their defense products in active battlefield conditions. Ukrainian officials also engaged with several defense industry firms. I'm sorry, the reason I'm bringing it up this week is I think there was like some kind of a biannual like meeting that took place, and they announced like Ukraine extended this invitation again to join this program. Norway has continued increasing support for Ukraine this year, and I don't know, I hope they are part of the program. Erlend, I guess, real quick, is there anything else you know about this joint, the Nordic Brigade project that you want to say?
No, I don't know anything about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry to spring it on you. I was just curious. But anyway, so yeah, it's an interesting idea. And I think it ties into something else, which is the next story. This is kind of a short one, but during a meeting at the UN General Assembly in New York, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and French President Emmanuel Macron discussed Ukraine's military needs and battlefield conditions. Zelensky shared that France has committed to training and equipping a Ukrainian brigade, further enhancing Ukraine's defense capabilities. And Zelensky expressed gratitude to France for all their continued military support and stuff. So I don't know. It just seems to me like the reason I brought these two stories up in particular is because it seems like Ukraine is kind of moving toward maybe a model of like asking for countries to help equip specific brigades. But I don't know. Maybe that's a false pattern, but we'll see. Anyway, just kind of an interesting observation that both of these things happened this week. The production of Russia's Su-57 fighter jets rely heavily on Western microelectronics and specialized equipment, despite international sanctions, according to leaked correspondence from Russian military electronics manufacturer Micropribor. They claim Western-made components are essential for the manufacturing and testing processes of key systems for the weapon, such as the MPPU-50 radio receiver, which is used for satellite communication and radar on the jets. In August 2022, the plant requested specific foreign-made components, including the WA-36 attenuator and power supplies from international partners. These parts were procured through Russian intermediary companies that acquired them from abroad and got around the sanctions. Despite microelectronics, Russia's aviation industry also continues to source foreign machinery. Micro Pribor arranged the purchase of German Siemens lathes in 2012 through a Russian supplier. And to circumvent international sanctions, they use intermediaries from countries like Kazakhstan and they have also been known to acquire military equipment from French countries, particularly for like jets and tanks and stuff. I think optics systems in particular. Also, kind of in the vein of stuff Russia's getting that we don't want them to get. Western officials have reportedly obtained evidence that Chinese companies have secretly supplied weapons to Russia for its war against Ukraine. A recent report shared with allies reveals that a Chinese company has been sending military drones to Russia for testing, with the ultimate goal of deploying them on the battlefield for Ukraine. The deal is believed to have been executed last year. One anonymous Western official confirmed that Chinese companies have been providing Russia with lethal weapons, despite public claim to the contrary. The official also referenced a Reuters report suggesting that Russia has an established secret program inside of China to develop and produce long-range attack drones for use in the war. And Secretary Blinken recently raised these concerns during a meeting with a Chinese foreign minister and expressed, increasing alarm over Russia and China's kind of military partnership regarding Ukraine. Representatives from 16 donor countries of the Ukraine Relief, Recovery, Construction, and Reform Trust Fund, or the URTF, convened in Kyiv to review the progress of ongoing projects and plan new initiatives. The URTF was established in December 2022 by the World Bank and so far has mobilized 1.86 billion US dollars, of which Ukraine has received around 1.2 billion so far. The meeting this time focused on projects aimed at reforming sectors such as education, finance, transport, and healthcare, while also supporting Ukraine's long-term economic recovery. Some of the projects include compensation for 64,000 households for residential repairs and the construction for protective structures for energy infrastructure. And Ukraine signed agreements with the World Bank for around $415 million in funding to enhance access through the LEARN project. I think I announced that several weeks ago. And then I would just mention, there were some minor, I shouldn't say minor, but relative to usual donations, I'd say 20, 40 million here and there from lots of different European countries to help Ukraine's power grid this week. But it was a little bit too much to go into specifics. But yeah, just there's some reasonably large donations of power supplies this week from European partners. In addition to that, the Netherlands has announced a new 209 million euro support package to help Ukraine restore critical infrastructure. The package includes 45 million for the Energy Support Fund. That's what it's called, the Energy Support Fund. The aid is aimed at helping Ukraine deal with the coming winter. And they highlighted that during the G7 meeting, the Netherlands highlighted that they have concerns with the energy infrastructure and stuff. Anyway, yeah, I wish I had a list of all the countries that contributed. But anyway, there was a significant contribution to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund this week by several countries. Foremost among them, the Netherlands, as usual. Thanks, guys. The U.S. government has imposed new sanctions on Russia targeting cybercrime and money laundering activities. These sanctions focus on Russian virtual financial platforms, specifically the PM2BC and Cryptex, as well as other specific Russian individuals. According to official statements from the U.S. Department of Treasury, the actions are part of an international effort to disrupt cybercrime from Russia. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network imposed restrictions on virtual currency exchanges, which they say are, I shouldn't say, but I'm sure they are correct in saying are involved in money laundering operations within Russia. And the Office of Foreign Assets Control also sanctioned Sergei Ivanov, who is a key figure in these services. The Department of State also offered a reward for $10 million for information which would lead to Ivanov's arrest and conviction. The formal charges were announced against Ivanov and another individual, Timur Shakhmametov, by the U.S. Secret Service and the Attorney's Office for Virginia. India has announced that it will not purchase liquefied natural gas from Russia's Arctic LNG-2 project, which has been sanctioned by Western countries. The Indian Oil Secretary, Pankaj Jain, stated on September 27th that India will avoid dealing with any sanctioned commodities. Arctic LNG-2, owned by Russia's Novatek, was expected to produce around 20 million metric tons of liquid natural gas annually for the Asian market and plays a significant role in Russia's goal to become a leading liquid natural gas producer. However, the project was hit by sanctions, which have severely impacted and hindered it. India has maintained reasonably strong diplomatic ties with Russia and has become one of the largest importers of Russian oil, but it has chosen, to not get involved with this project. And again, they cited the sanctions as a key factor in that. So this is kind of an interesting one. The Ukrainian Air Force has redacted an earlier report of Belarusian aircraft violating Ukrainian airspace on September 24th. Initially, it was reported that a low-speed aerial target crossed into Ukraine from Belarus near the Kyiv and Zhytomyr regions around 2:30 p.m. Ukraine time, or Kyiv time, heading south toward Kyiv Oblast. Monitoring groups such as Belarusian Hejin claim that a Belarusian Yak-30 combat aircraft was responsible for the incursion. However, later in the day, the Ukrainian Air Force clarified that the detected object was likely a radar jammer, which creates false targets rather than actual aircraft. Belarus, of course, is closely allied with Russia and hosts Russian military forces, but it hasn't been, directly itself involved in the war with Ukraine. I should also mention, I want to say one of the Shahed drones went way off course and wound up in Lithuania, but I don't want to confirm that, but I saw some buzz about that from some of the Tochnyi people. So maybe Daniela will be on later and he can talk about it. And then my last item for this week, as usual, I continue my coverage of the Mi-8 massacre that's going on. I try to cover every Mi-8 helicopter that randomly crashes in Russia. But this week, there's a twist. A chartered Mi-8 helicopter crashed during an emergency landing in North Waziristan, Pakistan, resulting in the deaths of at least 7 people. This was reported by the Times of India and Ukrinform. The helicopter, which was carrying employees of an oil company, I found the name of it, but I forget. It's a Pakistani oil company, like Oil Pakistan or something. The helicopter experienced engine failure shortly after takeoff, and it led to 6 fatalities and 8 injuries. Among the passengers were 3 Russian nationals, including 2 pilots and a crew member, although it's unclear if they're among the deceased. The crash occurred when the helicopter's tail rotor struck the ground during the emergency landing, and initial reports suggest a technical fault with no signs of sabotage involved in the incident. But that's just, of course, what Budinov wants you to think. No, I'm just kidding. An investigation into the accident, according to Pakistan, is ongoing. But I think we all know the answer. The Mi-8 is killing the Mi-8 is the best secret agent for Ukraine, killing all the Russians. I hope that those poor kids don't go to jail for too long, because if they just let the Mi-8 fly, then it probably would have gone down itself. But that wraps up my news report for this week, and I will now turn it over to my colleague German Aid to Ukraine. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, guys. As always, I will now present the most important news from Germany regarding Ukraine. First of all, the German Federal Foreign Office has financed 70 helmets. Yeah, I know, the famous German helmets. And 70 bulletproof vests for the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine. The helmets and the vests, which were already handed over, will help Ukrainian journalists to do their job in a safer manner. On Wednesday, the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development announced that it would mobilize another 70 million euros to provide Ukrainian cities and Jesus Christ, I hate that word, municipalities with smaller combined heat and power plants, boilers, generators, and solar energy systems for this winter. The goal is to provide community centers, hospitals, schools, and other social facilities, in particular with a more secure and independent energy supply. Special focus is placed on Ukrainian municipalities that have taken in internally displaced persons. And this, by the way, comes on top of the 100 million euro basically provided for the same purpose already announced last week. So it's 170 million euros so far from Germany for the upcoming winter. And as the last item for the news segment, very good news actually, the Bundestag, so the German parliament, agreed on Wednesday to increase the German military assistance for Ukraine for the current year, so for 2024, by nearly 400 million euro. So for anyone who's willing to know, it's 397 million euro in total. There's currently no confirmed information on what will be bought with this money, but I will let you know as soon as possible, as soon as I find something out, basically. And as the video of the week, I wanted to show you interesting footage shared by the Air Command West this week of a Skynix Erlend revolver gun Mark III with Solar Sigma shield, as well as the Erlend Skymaster battle management system during practical firing somewhere in Ukraine. So far, Germany has delivered 2 Skynix air defense systems to Ukraine, each with up to 4 Erlend revolver guns Mark III. 2 additional Skynix systems will be delivered next year, so in 2025. And yeah, that's all I had for this week. Back to you, Joseph.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so up next we have a presentation from our contributor, Brendan, who has published a recent article on his Substack. It's also available on our website, so we'll get a link up for you. And yeah, I'll turn it over to Brendan. Over to you, sir.